say composting, the first thing they're going to do is lower the pH of this food. Pickled foods are typically acidic. So this food in here is probably somewhere around a neutral pH of 7, maybe down to 6.5. When we're done, the pH is going to be probably down in the 4s or the 5s. That's not a problem. I know some of you are asking, well, I don't want my soil to have a low pH. When we collect this stuff like we do, we're going to let it ferment for a while, probably about 2 weeks. And in a 2-week period, the microorganisms are going to grow, they're going to multiply. So if we put in 10,000 microorganisms, just as an example, we're going to have a couple 100,000, maybe a 500,000, because they're going to grow. Everything is a function of food. So we have a microorganism, we have a living environment, it's an anaerobic or without air environment, so we don't have to worry about other pathogens coming in. We're lowering the pH, just like you pickle and preserve food, we're going to pickle and preserve this by lowering the pH by the microorganisms. And since it's a function of food, we have a lot of food, we're going to have a lot of microorganisms. So another no-no you'll see is meats. No big deal. You don't have to break hot dogs up. I just choose to do so because it gives them more surface area to grow and live on. Just drop them in here. It's really this simple, guys. How many of you have gone composting with, what we're doing here? They say everything but the kitchen sink. Well, guess what? Let's put the kitchen cake in there. Compost everything, guys. You will be absolutely stunned and amazed at how much you throw away. Every year, if you fill this 4-gallon bucket and it takes you, for instance, say 2 weeks, and then you have 2 weeks of fermentation, and then after your fermentation, I've made another video that shows you how you bury it in the ground, and it'll finish the composting to where you'll have a good compost and humus, rich in biology, a good tilth, a lot of microorganisms, a lot of worms, a lot of biology, a lot of stuff in there to grow things with. You'll be surprised that in a year's time, just by taking your gardening scraps and your kitchen scraps, that you can probably put anywhere between 800 and 1,000 pounds of biology and soil back into your garden, something that you would otherwise throw away in a landfill. So here's our red beets. We'll put them in there, and you see there's a little bit of moisture. Since that layer was a little thick, reach in, grab you some of this. See, just sprinkle it evenly on there, guys. Keep at it. The nice thing about this kind of composting is you can't overload it. Your standard compost pile, if you put too much in there, you'll have a bad compost pile. After a while, it'll go bad, it'll smell, it'll putrefy, you'll get areas in it that are just nasty. And you don't really want to put that in your garden and your food. With this stuff here, again, we're preserving everything. So what we're going to do is I can take this same system in a 4-gallon bucket and make it in a 20-gallon bucket. I can take this same system, and if I had a restaurant or I had a office where I had a lot of people bringing their lunches and whatnot, I could go ahead and compost using a 55-gallon garbage can using the exact same method. A layer of Bokashi, layer of food, layer of Bokashi, layer of food, until it's all full up. And then eventually you're going to take it out and bury it in the soil and give it a couple weeks, and then you're done, guys. Here, some pickled peppers, Peter Piper style. Go ahead, lay them out. How many of you have seen composting like this? I bet a lot of hands have not gone up in the classroom. All right, there you go. That is it, guys. All that food that I just had here is now in my bucket. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dollar store special masher. And we said in the beginning of this that this is an anaerobic process. So if we push down on the food, we're accomplishing two things. Number one, we're pushing out air pockets. Number two, we are taking the wheat bran and pushing it into the surface. We're making a better contact, and we're making more room in our bucket. That's it, guys. What we do is we'll put an inner lid on here. Anything that's occlusive, anything meaning that it'll take out oxygen. In my buckets here, if you were to order one from me, I have a cardboard and wax paper inner liner. You can make one yourself. You can use a plate you can use a dish that you would use in the bottom of a planted pot, a plastic one, or you can just get yourself a piece of wax paper, guys. That's it. Anything that can go on the surface, exclude the air, and keep it as airtight as you can get. So, now that I'm done, I'm just going to take this, push it in, and that's it, guys. That is it for the composting. I will put a snap lid. The lid should be airtight. It doesn't have to have the rubber liner around the edge. It's nice if it does. Doesn't have to. Put your lid on, snap it. That's it, guys. That is all there is to starting your Bokashi bucket. Make sure you snap the lid well. As easy as Bokashi composting is, it can fail. Some of the things it can fail for is that you didn't put a good quality Bokashi wheat bran or rice bran in there. Most of the Bokashi brands you buy are pretty good stuff. I know my stuff, I ferment it for at least 60 days, so I have a good fermentation, and I dry it out really well. Some of the other Bokashis that I've got, and I've actually bought some before, it's wet. So I did get less volume per weight, because they're sold typically by weight. I sell mine at 650 grams. A lot of people sell it 500 grams, 600 grams, whatever. But when you, for instance, with mine, it's very dry. So for that 650 grams, you get a larger mass, which means you really get more product than some of the others. So when you buy a Bokashi brand, whether it's wheat or rice, take a look at it, make sure it's good and dry, smell it. It should have a good cidery smell or a good vinegary smell. If it doesn't, be careful. The stuff that I use is 100% wheat bran. A lot of Bokashis will have sawdust in it. If it says may contain, it's an inferior product because you're paying for a scrap material. Another thing that can cause this to go bad is that you didn't put the inner lid on, or you didn't get the air out. Again, this is anaerobic without oxygen, so try to keep as much oxygen off of it as you can. The main reason that this fails, if it does fail, in the very rare case that it does, is you don't drain it. Every 2 to 3 days you want to drain the liquid out. Tip your bucket towards you, press the button in my case, and drain it out. If you don't have a spout like I've got here, go ahead and just tilt your bucket sideways and save that juice. That juice is liquid gold. I can show you in another video, or you can go onto my website and see what you can do with that juice. And that's it, guys. Just take your bucket, set it in the house. I set sometimes when it's warm outside,